So for this 7 series, I've brought together what I affectionately like to call our own wee United Nations for women, in the sense of you've got a group of women ranging in age from 25 to 40 years old, single, engaged, married, with babies, many different nationalities, hugely varied upbringings, all different shapes and sizes, yet this was a theme that united us all. Because many of the themes that follow in this series are actually rooted in this one. Suffice to say, we had plenty to talk about on the theme of self-esteem. So, Siobhan, you come across like every woman here as being so confident and really together, but I also am very aware of your story of your upbringing. And so when it comes to the theme of self-esteem, I suppose my question would be, you know, how much of what we see of Siobhan is you, and how much is a, say, protective shield because of what you've gone through?
I think that's a really difficult question for me to answer, because I think I always am myself. So I think sometimes it's easy to lose a perspective on how other people perceive you, but it's definitely, self-esteem is definitely something that I have struggled with. I grew up in an extremely abusive home environment, which covered all abuses. You think of it, it happened. So, you know, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional, mental. And when you're growing up like that, it takes a long time for you to start to shed the way that you've been programmed to see yourself. And something I read recently which really resonated with me was this saying, "It's not you, it's your programming." And I thought, yeah, you know, it's not you, it's your programming. And sometimes you have to step out of your family of origin to find the family that really actually nurtures you. Because in my own experience, that's not been the case. You know, my family of origin definitely didn't nurture me at all. In fact, I'd say it felt like they did the opposite to that. But it's in stepping away from that, and for me that has meant ultimately going no contact. I tried for a long time to make that relationship work. I'm 38 now, so this isn't new to me, and this has been something that's been in my life for a long time. I've been through a lot of therapy to deal with this and to help me integrate my experiences and move forwards. And I think that in terms of self-esteem, with people who've been sexually abused, that I read that it's the only abuse where people internalise the shame of the abuser. So people who, if someone comes and robs your house, we don't internalise the shame of being burgled. We don't feel, oh, I'm so bad person, I've been burgled. But people who have been sexually abused will, on the whole, internalise the shame that actually rightfully belongs to that person. And often they will project that, and you can tell I've been through therapy, bad words that I use. But, you know, and often they'll project that onto that person, like, it's your fault, you made me do it, it's what you were wearing, you know, women are bad, women are sexual, women are tempters. And then, of course, that manifests itself into growing up as a young woman being you know, shamed for your sexuality. And I mean, really unfortunately, when I was 13, I had a sleepover at a friend's house, and her dad molested me in my sleep. And you know, you kind of think, oh no, it's just again, it's like one of those things you grow up and you're thinking, oh, it must be me, that's making all these bad things happen. So it's been a really, really long journey that is still ongoing, really, because I will still come up against triggers that will come out of the blue.
For you, was there a defining moment where you thought enough is enough, or has it been a gradual thing?
It's been gradual, really. Right. And there have been moments that have been enough is enough, but it's happened gradually. I think one of the first times that I realised that something was wrong was I was about 21, and I realised that I was dissociating, which means that you can kind of not be present at all, which is really common when you've been repeatedly sexually abused, because you don't actually want to be there. You know, you don't want to have this stuff doing to you, and you're a child, and there are people that are older than you doing this stuff, so you dissociate. You know, you go somewhere in your head where you're just like, well, this is just my body, but you can't affect me, and essentially that's dissociation. And I started to think, what's happening to me? Why is this happening to me? What I don't even know what's going on here. And that was the real beginning of me starting to come to terms with that trauma. And that trauma, actually, they say that a lot of traumatic memories don't really start to fully resurface until you can deal with them. And so even on the traumatic journey, you'll go through periods where it's almost like, the light will shine on this area, and then you deal with it to a large extent, and it goes on another area, and you're dealing with that. And it can feel like this never-ending journey of life. So I would really want to encourage people who are going through that I know it's hard and it's long and it's dark and it feels like it's never-ending, but each time you go through this, you'll be stronger and you'll be stronger. And I think for me, one of the reasons that I decided to say, I suppose overall enough is enough, is it's for the next generation. I feel that's the thing that's deepest in me, is I have to be the person who says enough is enough and this stops. I mean, it's been back-breakingly, painfully hard, and it's taken me the longest time to, probably until into my 30s, to be able to talk about it openly and to own it and not to feel the shame that I was talking about in expressing this. But it's, I see myself as like a pioneer. And this ground is going to be really hard to till because you're the first person doing it, but you have to do it for the people coming after. And I think that until someone owns that family pain and says enough, it's just going to keep going through the generations. I said enough, like maybe that was just enough. I didn't see the journey ahead of me, and I definitely didn't. I wasn't thinking of it as a place of confidence. I was just thinking of like, this is enough now. We have to stop this, and if it's me that has to stop it, then fine.
For anybody watching this particular theme of self-esteem and they've heard something that really resonates with them, if you were to give them a word of encouragement or a practical take-home, Siobhan?
In one little
No!
The pressure. A line of poetry by Rupi Kaur, which I read a while ago, which was, to paraphrase, the voice that you speak to yourself with that's belittling you, that's self-abuse. And often we internalise the voices of our primary caregivers, and it could be a parent or grandparent or a teacher from when you're young, and that negative voice is something you've internalised and you've believed about yourself. And I think all of the things that I've heard here are so important to be saying, you don't get to speak to me like that. That's really, really powerful. But if someone says, a terrible comment to you, if you just catch them in a moment and say, does that make you feel more powerful? It often stops people in tracks. Can you imagine doing it? I mean, right? And if you think about like these situations, if you just said right there and then, does that make you feel powerful? Boom, there it is, and there's that power shift. So I hope that would encourage people who are struggling with their self-esteem.
Next time on the 7 series.
I just couldn't cope. I couldn't cope. I got to the point where I was on my hands and my knees and I thought, I can't continue living life like this.